gave me my own personal experience. I paid $2,500. I thought that was a deal because the first guy who I reached out to quoted me $5,000. I was like, man, this must be some really serious work, right? And so I paid and I got it. I got it off my record. But as I came into practice myself, Brett, I'm getting calls from people all the time like, hey, do you do expungements, cold calling the way I did when I needed one myself? And I'm like, yeah. And I realized that the work is so formulaic, right? You fill out the form, it's always the same information, name, date of birth, social security number, arresting agency, and it takes about 5 minutes. And I said to myself, wow, millions of people are having interactions with the police every single year, and all of them are not resulting in convictions. So all of those are going to be eligible for expungement. Some are resulting in convictions, but even maybe up to half of those are going to become eligible for expungement at some point. But nobody is speaking to this huge swath of the American public who need record clearing assistance from attorneys. If we could just build something that would allow us to assist people with expungement work all across the United States, we could be the Morgan and Morgan of record clearing, right?
What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassity. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, welcome back. Nightmare Success In and Out. Listeners, this is where you come for what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? And folks, I know I sound like a broken record, but don't forget to follow, subscribe, share this thing out, like it up. Really helps the show, and I really appreciate it. So who are we talking to today? Well, it's interesting guy. So it's Lawrence Blackmon. He's a defense attorney. He's currently serves as a representative in the Mississippi House. So he is in politics. He is in politics, making things happen.
Not too loud.
He's also the CEO of Legal Ease. And we were just talking about this before we got on. He's behind the team that's bringing out Expungement AI. And we're going to talk about that because this is something that Lawrence was personally involved with when he was applying to law school, figured out that it was really something that he could make it a lot easier for people. And he was getting a lot of phone calls about expungement. So he said, hey, why don't I just figure out how to make this happen? And he's making it happen. So I can't wait to jump into all this with Lawrence. But before we do, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. Who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots looking for a car? Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. Negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. And folks, check out this book. Doctor Not Guilty by exonerated psychiatrist internist Muhammad Ali Rafai. It's the battle cry and blueprint for anyone misjudged by a system that should protect the innocent. The book takes you inside the investigation, the courtroom, the hard nights when faith and courage remain. You will meet the prosecutors and agents who failed and the physicians, families, and patients who refused to surrender. This book reveals the truth about how power can distort justice and how resilience can truly set you free. Read it, share it, join Dr. Rafai in demanding accountability and restoring honor and dignity to medicine and the rule of law. He was a guest on this show. It's an incredible story of what he went through to get exonerated. So let's jump into this. Lawrence Blackmon, how are you, my man?
I'm doing well, Brent. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to a lively conversation.
Well, I appreciate it. I want to go back a little bit in your background because in reading up on you, I know your dad was a guy that was in politics, so you kind of grew up in that world. Can you take us back a little bit about what it was like as little Lawrence Blackmon growing up and what that household was like at that time?
Yeah, so my dad is an attorney, and he was also a representative in the Mississippi House of Representatives for 40 years. And
That's a
so
long time.
Yes, a long time. My dad started practicing law in 1973. And so here in Mississippi, especially back then, there weren't a lot of black attorneys, right? And so he was kind of like an anomaly in our community. And so growing up with a father who has that kind of standing in the community was really a unique position for me in Mississippi. But it showed me the value of hard work, right?
Mhm.
And how much of a difference one person can make if they prepare themselves to be of use and of value to the community. And so, I always wanted to emulate that as much as possible, and it was really a guiding force for me as I grew up. I knew that I had to finish high school because I had to get to law school, right? I knew I had to get into undergrad and I had to finish undergrad because I had to get to law school. So I always had this kind of north star of who I wanted to be and where I wanted to be in life, and so that was really impactful for me.
Well, that's interesting 'cause as a young kid, your dad is bigger than life. Obviously, he was an attorney. Did you automatically think, "That's what I wanna do? I wanna be an attorney. I wanna get into all that." Is that just kinda
Yeah, I
how you
never I think that people kind of spoke that over me before
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to have an idea of anything else that I may be. So people always say, "Oh, you look just like your dad. Oh, you speak just like him. Oh, you're gonna be an attorney just like him." And so I kind of adopted that
Yeah,
really, really
you
tough.
just took that on.
I took it on, and so I never thought that I wanted to be anything else outside of a veterinarian. I wanted to be a veterinarian for a while, and I worked on a farm, when I was young, and we had a veterinarian that would come every few months, and he would check the cattle and sheep and things, and so I was speaking to him when I was a junior in high school.
Mhm.
And so he asked me to make a list of the things that were important to me. And so I really said, helping people, helping animals, making money. And he said, "Well, how important is that one, making money?" And I said, "That's really important." He said, "Okay, go to law school."
I love it.
And so
You
that was
kinda
it.
rearrange
After
those.
that, yeah, after that, I said I was going to go to law school, and I did.
Let's talk about that, going to law school, because, you had something happen to you that you thought, was not ever gonna come up because it was dismissed. Can you tell us this that because a lot of people have something like that happen where they have something, a suspended imposition of sentence where they think that it's gone, and then it comes back, and it wasn't expunged, and they thought it was over and squeezed out of there. But you had something happen to you that happened earlier in your life that when you're going to law school, all of a sudden it reappears.
That's right. Yeah, so, I went to undergrad at Howard University, and I know we all know that Howard University is in Washington, DC. Washington, DC it's a really great and beautiful city outside of Capitol Hill where all of the politics is happening. And so, I was in undergrad, I'm having a good time like folks in undergrad do. I'm
Uh-huh.
on U Street one Friday night, we're partying, we're bar hopping and taking shots, and so I hit an alley to take a leak right quick, right? And the next thing I know, blue lights on me, and I'm like, "Oh, shit." Right? And I actually got arrested for that. I was like, "Man, this is kinda harsh?"
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I spent a night in jail. The next day, they're rounding us all up in the waiting, area, and they made 2 lines, right? And so they had a list of people who had to go in front of the judge, and then this other line, it was just like 3 of us, and they said, "You 3, your charges are dismissed." And I was like, "Oh, great." No explanation as to why, no anything, they
So
just
you
told
didn't
us
have
that
to do anything. They
didn't
had
have to do
already
anything.
decided they were gonna dismiss you out of there.
That's right. So I guess, and as an attorney now, I know that they probably presented it to a prosecutor, and they were like, "Get this out of here.
Yeah.
There's nothing here."
Don't
Right?
need
And
to deal
so
with this. Right.
I was like, "Oh my God, thank God, no harm, no foul." I didn't tell my dad at that point because I felt like I didn't need to. It was like, "Man,
Right.
this is right in my past. I'll never tell anybody about this."
Yeah.
Fast forward, I'm applying to law school. And on the application, they're asking me to list everywhere I've ever lived, everything I've ever done, every day of my life. If I've had any interactions with the police, listed. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I had that arrest."
Mhm.
And so I'm like Googling, can this stop me from getting to law school? I'm on these Reddit threads and they're like, maybe. And I'm like, "Oh my God." Because all I ever wanted to be was a lawyer.
Right.
And so here I had this thing from my past catching up to me in a way that I never imagined. And so I sat down with my dad and I finally came clean about what happened all those years ago. And he said, "Son, you need to get an expungement." And so that opened up that world of record clearing to me, right? It gave
Hmm.
me my own personal experience. I paid $2,500. I thought that was a deal because the first guy who I reached out to quoted me $5,000. And I was like,
Okay.
man, this must be some really serious work, right? And so I paid and I got it, I got it off of my record. But as I came into practice myself, Brett, I'm getting calls from people all the time like, "Hey, do you do expungements?" Cold calling the way I did when I needed one myself, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." And I realized that the work is so formulaic, right? You fill out the form, it's always the same information, name, date of birth, social security number, arresting agency, and it takes about 5 minutes. And I said to myself, "Wow, you know, millions of people are having interactions with the police every single year, and
Yep.
all of them are not resulting in convictions. So all of those are going to be eligible for expungement.
Hmm.
Some are resulting in convictions, but even maybe up to half of those are going to become eligible for expungement at some point. But nobody is speaking to this huge swath of the American public who need record clearing assistance from attorneys. We all just kind of take them as they come, right?
Right.
And I said, well, if anybody was doing this at scale, this could be huge. This could be huge. And so I called up my good friend from undergrad and I said, man, if we could just build something that would allow us to assist people with expungement work all across the United States, we could be the Morgan and Morgan of record
Hmm.
clearing, right? And so that was a huge
Absolutely.
opportunity. It represented a huge blind spot in the legal market. And so we just began to tackle that about 3 years ago. And since then we've had some amazing results.
Well, so Lawrence, if somebody, I'm assuming that, like you said, this is not just in Mississippi. This is something that's a national uh, uh, platform that people can go to. Is it called Expungement AI? AI?
Yeah, so Expungement AI is the flagship platform for Legal Ease. Legal Ease is the startup,
Okay.
and you can use Expungement AI or you can go through legalese.com to access
Or
that
go to
platform
legalese.com because there's a lot
or
of
go to
people that
legalese.
listen to this show that have had issues uh, with, and expungement is a big one of the things you and I were talking about is that I think there's 49 states that have some form of expungement. I don't think Alaska does. I'm not even sure why they don't, but
Alaska and
um,
Alabama don't.
A- Alabama doesn't. Okay, so
Yeah,
there's the vast majority of states has some form of expungement. So it's, 48 states out of 50. Um, and there's a lot of people that are, and there's a lot of newer um, legislation that's gone on that's made it easier for, especially California passed something recently within the last couple of years. I know Missouri has gotten into making it easier for people. And so this form that you have, people just go to Legalese or they go to expungement AI and they can just get involved with whatever it just I'm assuming, Lawrence, it just walks
that's
them through
right.
what they've gotta do.
Yeah, and so we use artificial intelligence as a guide, right? And so your personal legal assistant with Legalese is Wilma. Wilma is a personal guide through the expungement process. And so what she does is exactly what a lawyer would do. If somebody called my office right now or came into my office and they needed an expungement, I would start off with a set of questions, right,
Okay.
to determine whether or not they're eligible. Once I determine that a person is eligible, then I would begin with a different set of questions that would then go into a petition to be printed out and submitted to the clerk's office for expungement, right? On our platform, Wilma will ask you the same questions that an attorney would ask you, and she'll help you to determine your eligibility. Once eligibility is determined, then a second set of questions will then be asked that will generate a petition for a person to submit. Now, Mississippi is unique in that in a lot of our jurisdictions, your paperwork has to actually be submitted directly to the clerk. But in some other jurisdictions, we're working with a company that is going to give us direct access to the online filing systems that the courts use that would allow people to file directly online. And so that's going to be a really revolutionary addition to our platform.
Well, I love this because, a lot of people had the ability to be considered for expungement. They don't do it because they don't know the steps or how to do it. So I love
Mhm.
this as just a platform you can go in and just get into it. You can just start doing it without an attorney. and get a long ways down the road to get into what you want to get. And expungement is such a big deal. I mean, it's we talk about when people are released from prison, the top 3 things that when they've done these, surveys, obviously getting a job, obviously finding a place to live, and community is number 3. But that thing of getting a job and getting a place to live, it's a place also where you can legally discriminate against people if they have a
Mhm.
record.
Right.
And expungement really truly allows people to get a fresh, real start so that they don't have to go over that wall, that gigantic barrier wall when they're just trying to get a place to live or they're just trying to get any job. And expungement can help that process just like, it's like a turbo shot for somebody when they're looking to get the best opportunity they can to get their second opportunity.
I think one of the unfortunate things, Brent, is that, any interaction with police, whether it results in a conviction or not, it kind of you walk away from that almost with like a scarlet letter,
Right,
right? I mean, it goes onto your record. There's no context about what happened. And so anytime somebody looks you up, whether it's for getting an apartment or rent to
right,
own housing, or if you want to coach a little league team, or if you're looking to get into professional school, or you're getting a promotion at a job, these things pop up. And you
right.
have some instances where a person has been living their life, they've got other jobs and had other opportunities, and it never came up, and now all of a sudden, for whatever reason, with this opportunity, it's popping up, something old, and they didn't even know it was still there, and they become almost desperate, right? Because they're right on the verge, right on the cusp of moving up, right? Of making some type of move in their life. And now all of a sudden they're stopped from doing that because someone is saying, "Hey, this is on your record. You need to get that
Yeah,
cleared up before you can move forward." And I think that's so unfortunate, right? It's so unfair. And so what we're doing is using technology, using AI for good to kind of level the playing field. Because, like you said, so many people who are eligible don't even take that first step because they
right,
don't know what to do, or because
right.
they assume that they don't have the money to
Right,
afford a
it's the fear
lawyer.
of the unknown. It's
That's
all
right.
unknown.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna have to get an attorney. I'm gonna have to figure this out. I don't know if I have the dollars. I don't know if I can figure out the paper. I don't, and this allows them to get involved and figure it out, and I love it. I'm also curious, Lawrence, with you being a defense attorney, and dealing with the cases that you deal with, and then also being, a state representative. H Does that play into how you approach that job, the state representative job of what you bring to the table of what you have over here as a defense attorney?
Yeah. So one thing that I say, in terms of your representative, right? No matter where you live in the United States, everybody knows they have congressional representatives, but you also have your local state representatives who develop state legislation and state laws, right? And so I say that you in a representative, you get whatever area of expertise, whatever domain expertise they carry with them, right? So if you elect a farmer, they're going to bring that knowledge of
Mhm.
agriculture and farming to the table in the state legislature. For me, as a defense attorney, as a tech founder, that's what I bring to the table: an intimate knowledge of the criminal justice system for both the good and the bad, right? So I understand what works and I understand what doesn't work. And so as I legislate on behalf of my district, that's always in the back of my mind. I may not know everything about every piece of legislation that comes across, but that's what I have colleagues for, right? And so my good friend from across the aisle, Lance Warner, he's a farmer, right? And
Mhm.
so when agriculture related legislation comes up, I look to him. I say, "Hey, is this good for the farmers or is this bad for the farmers?" And in the same token, a lot of my colleagues look to me when we have legislation that comes up about the justice system, whether it be in the criminal context or family law. And so I try to offer that, that insight that I have in order to craft and draft better legislation, and also to be able to fight against legislation that I know doesn't work. And that has happened before, on the floor where, you have somebody who is presenting a bill. They're not an attorney. It involves the criminal justice system or the justice system, and they're kind of advocating for this. And I'm saying, ideally, in a perfect world, what you're saying would make sense, but let me tell you how this would play out in reality and why this is not a good thing for Mississippi. And so, that's what I bring to the table.
Well, it's a big topic of discussion. the criminal justice system, um, both on a state and federal level, and you're in it. What do you think, Lawrence, of seeing what you see day in, day out? What are some of the fixes that could make it better? I know we know there's pieces that are broken. Are there real world solutions to some of the things that you see daily that if you tweaked it, that we could take a step forward and a system that most people say has to be fixed, but not everybody's wanting to go in and make the fixes.
It's a huge undertaking. So I understand why it would be intimidating to some people, and some of the things that would need to be done are not necessarily things that are popular.
Mhm,
But one thing I think is that we need to do a better job of separating people who can be reformed
mhm,
from people who cannot be reformed. And we also need to separate the people who are simply criminal minded from people who suffer from mental illness, right?
mhm,
The unfortunate thing about mental illness in the United States, and this is just across the board, is that we just do not have the systems in place to cater to people who have mental illness, right? And so as a result, a lot of them are just left to be out here in the world until they do something that is against the law, and then they're thrown into the system that is
right.
not necessarily equipped to assist them with coping with a mental illness, right? And so they just get thrown into the same pile with everybody else. And I think that that's bad, both for the people who suffer from mental illness. It's bad for the people who have to work in the jails because they are exposed to greater danger because they don't are not trained or given the proper equipment to deal with certain types of inmates. And then the people who are incarcerated with them, who don't suffer from mental illness, are put in a position to where they all have to kind of blend. And I have seen some really bad outcomes with that, right? You see people who are in the system who suffer from mental illness. The way that some of them are treated
Mhm.
in jail, they're left to do the chores for other inmates, and really get a bad experience, right? That only exasperates the mental illness more. And so I think that we could just do a better job of separating the situations, and of giving people exactly what they need in the system to be able to come out and then become productive members of society. And also, in addition to that, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, when people come out of the system, right? They've gone in, they've served their time, and they come back into the free world. They're so far behind.
Right.
They have a trouble getting houses. They have trouble getting transportation. And if you don't live in a metropolitan area where you have sufficient public transportation, what is a person left to do, right? Other than to try to get a ride here, try to get a ride there. And there's so much pressure on people coming out of the system. And I think
Mhm.
that that contributes to the high level of recidivism that we see in our society. And so I just think that from beginning to end, we have to rework our system. I don't think that we ever built it to have the capacity that it does with so many people caught up. And I think that we need to rework the system in a way that caters, and then that's a funny word when you're talking to lawmakers about people in prison, right? But also that caters to the needs of people who come to the system, because reform used to be a real thing, right? And I
Right.
don't hear as much about that anymore. But I think we need to get back to reforming people who can be reformed, and making sure that we distinguish the ones who can from the ones who can't, so that we can deal with them accordingly.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point too that the scarlet letter, everybody, uh, if they have a record, they're basically put all in one bucket. There's
Mhm.
no differentiation whatsoever. Somebody that has let's say they have a non-violent offense, and there was a one-time deal. Well, that they're in the same bucket as somebody that did something very violent, and the the discrimination is basically the same. There is
Mhm.
no differentiation when you try to go get a house or housing or a car or banking. That's the other thing that we have that a lot of people don't take into account is this debanking thing. Banks don't have to give a reason for just saying, no, we won't do business with you because of your record. You have a record.
Mhm.
There's 80 million plus people that have a record. So those are people that are having trouble, and there's starting to be some people that are these online banks that'll do business with somebody that has um, a felony record. But that's another equation that somebody's dealing with, Lawrence, when they get out that, "Oh my gosh, I can't bank. What
Mhm.
do I do?" That's something getting back into society people don't think about, but that's pushes people to, these cash checking places and other things that are just, with the high fees and all that. So you've got debanking, you've got places that you can't get a loan from, um, or and then where does that affect? Getting a car, getting a place to, live, and those places might just say that they don't wanna do business with you because 'cause they've done a background check and that's just it. So so
Mhm.
it's like a double dip, you get debanked over here, you try to get yourself a car, you try to get yourself housing, and all of it just layers up into what you just led into was recidivism.
Mhm.
And
That's right.
it becomes like, I'm not able to get back into society, so I fall back into a place, uh, and that's another thing. A lot of people, when they fall back into a place that'll give them housing, is in a place that probably isn't the best place for them to be.
Right. That's right. Yeah, and it's a place that, um, is makes it more likely, right, that you're gonna get into more of that same
Right.
kind of stuff, and so it's a real conundrum, but I really think that we have got to get serious about treating mental illness, in this country, because, I did a thing last, legislative session where I started touring the prisons in Mississippi, and I didn't get
Mhm.
to see all of them, but I saw a good number of them, and it's just so many people who are just straight up off of their rocker. They
Well,
need
so
mental.
Lawrence, on that basis, do you divide up the prison system and people who have mental disorders, mental conditions, do we house and treat them differently so they can be treated? Is that s is that what should be done?
I think so. I think so. I think that we should differentiate people who are just like I said, criminally minded from those who are mentally ill, and that is the driving force behind the things that they've done to end up in the system. I think we should separate them and give them the treatment that they need so that they can have a greater likelihood of being able to come out and overcome their mental illness. I don't think that it does them any good to be thrown into the pot with everybody else, and then go to jail and have this overstimulating experience that leaves them worse off when they're getting out in terms of their mental health than they were when they came in.
Yeah, because everything that we're talking about, everybody wants a safer society. So if we can take somebody that has a mental illness and treat them and not just throw them into a prison environment, but actually have them treated and they could get better, then when they're released back into society, you have a safer society again. So I think everything, the guiding light should be most of these people are going to go home. So
Mhm.
how do we get these people home where everybody has a safer society? That's the secret, ingredient that
I
a
think
lot of
we
people.
also have to we have to bring back the deterrent factor some, and one thing that I've noticed is that, so many people in the penitentiary now, they have access to cell phones, they're on social media,
Mhm.
they're gambling on Sundays with with the games and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think that if the word in society is that, if you go to prison, you could pretty much, have your life hanging out with your homeboys and your can
Mhm.
gamble online gambling and you can be on Facebook and Instagram all day, then I don't think that there would be enough hesitation, right? People won't necessarily think twice before they do certain things because they've already calculated in a prison experience, right? I can go to prison, I can make it, it won't be that bad. I can still make money, I can still be on social media all day, which is what
Mhm.
far too many people are doing all day anyway. And so I think that's another piece of that. We have got to figure out how we can bring the deterrent factor and put that back into the penal system.
Any ideas on that?
So I have had some discussions with some of my colleagues in the House about introducing legislation that would disable contraband cell phones on the prison yards in Mississippi. That
Mhm.
would disable people from being able to get online and to be online because I think that is such a, again, when you have people who can take a look into prison right, and into what's going on and say, it's not that bad. Maybe I can make it. Maybe I can survive. Then I think that you run the risk of those people saying, maybe I'll take a chance and steal this car. Maybe I'll take a chance and shoot up this house. Maybe I'll take a chance at taking my enemy out, because maybe prison is not that bad. And so I can imagine, I don't know of a world where social media pretty much didn't exist, but I can imagine that in times before this, maybe there was a little bit of fear of what's going on in prison, and I think that fear of the unknown is probably a healthy element of deterrence when it comes to the
Mhm.
penitentiary and the penal justice system.
Yeah. Let's take a break there because when we get back, I want to talk about um, what your plans are going forward with uh, this platform that you have, and how that can make a huge impact in what's going on with everybody else in this world with expungement.
Let's talk
Um,
about it.
okay. A lot of people don't know how or don't like how they show up online. Many individuals think there's no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google. There is hope. It's called the Discoverability Company, and they can help you whether you're building your reputation from scratch or you're repairing your search results after a negative news story. Discoverability can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, go to discoverability.co, not .com, .co. They're launching a do-it-yourself SEO option, a course for individuals who want to take on their search results on their own budget and speed. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off their DIY SEO course with coupon code Nightmare Success. And the Nightmare Success podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group, the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I tell you, this is a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey, you've made it through the other side, this is great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to prisonist.org. It's prisonist.org. We got a white collar conference that's coming up October 11th, so check that out on prisonist.org. So, Lawrence, how long have you been in uh, the as a state rep?
So I would be going into my third session, right? This
Okay.
is my first term, third session. So
Okay.
I guess I'm a little bit more than halfway through my first term.
What's been your biggest surprise going in to your first term?
Well, I'll be honest. I thought that it would be a lot easier to get things done that make sense. But but you learn that the political process, it's a long process, right?
Yeah, it is.
It takes a long time to get things done. Even if they make sense, you have to get so many people on board, and there are so many things that go into um, bringing something from idea to draft legislation to the governor's desk, right? There's so much mileage
So
between
much.
that. And so I guess really getting involved and seeing what it takes to get something from beginning to finish. That's been an eye-opening experience.
So do you have like a passion project that you're trying to move as the new guy on the block?
Yeah, and so I'm working to get education fully funded in Mississippi. We have never had a fully funded education formula in Mississippi, and so that's what I wake up every day thinking about how I can better position us to get more monies into the public education system.
Education, that is my youngest daughter is a high school teacher, and man, those teachers, getting good teachers and teachers that are passionate, they can change people's lives, but they also have to have money in that system to make it work.
That's right. Yeah. And so too many schools in my district and others are just they're behind the eight ball in the things that they need, right? And so everything is evolving so quickly these days, right? And so it's really easy for schools, districts, and students to fall behind, right?
Mhm.
Because the haves they have so much, right? So much of the new technology and so much access to this and that that they become very advanced very quickly. And so we really want to even that playing field and make sure that all students all across Mississippi have access to the best.
That's a good passion project for sure.
It's a big one.
So with this expungement program that you've got with legalese and uh, the platform that is it something that you push out and work with Lawrence with um, like, I'm wondering how, like, do you work with state institutions that they know about the expungement? Do you work with reentry people? How does this get out to people so that they know about it?
So we work with a lot of grassroots organizations who already are servicing our ICP. Our ICP is our ideal customer. Ideal customer profile is an
Okay.
ICP, but our ideal customer, right? And so we work with people who already have boots on the ground in communities and who are already working with the people who need this service most.
I like that. Well, I hope a lot of people that are listening today can find out that this is something that they didn't know about and they can go to it and get involved because I didn't know about it. And I like to think that al- I've almost done 200 interviews here over 4 seasons, and I feel
Wow.
like I should know about this. So, um, I think it's absolutely outstanding what you're doing because it's a needed service. It's a service that so many people, like you said, there's millions of people that can take advantage of this. And you recognized as an attorney, it's something that can be done a lot easier than people think, and you can automate it, make
Mhm.
a system out of it.
You know, the secret is, and I'm gonna tell you all a secret, there is so much that we do as attorneys that people could do on their own with just a little bit of help, and
Uh-huh.
so what are we as lawyers? We are guardians of the process, right?
Right.
We have knowledge of the process, and we have knowledge of the language, right? The language that has to go into these forms, all of that magic language that you have to put in to get something done, right? And so that's what lawyers do, and so traditionally lawyers have been gatekeepers of that information, gatekeepers of the process, gatekeepers of the language, right? Of the lingo, of the legalese. And
Mhm.
so what we're doing is empowering people using artificial intelligence to get some of this stuff done without an attorney, right? And so our overarching goal, our North Star as a company, is to empower people to handle non-complex legal matters on their own without an attorney. And so we're beginning in this record clearing space because it's very black or white. Either you meet the prescribed legislative conditions to be
Or you
eligible
don't.
or you
Right.
don't, right? And so there's not a lot of room for error. But as the technology matures, as the technology becomes more ubiquitous and people get a little bit more accustomed to using AI in their daily lives, we envision a future where people can bypass attorneys altogether for some things, right? And so when you talk about complex litigation, you'll need an attorney for now. I won't say always, but when
Yeah.
it comes down to these non-complex legal things, no fault divorce, expungement, some of your soft tissue injury stuff, we think
Mhm.
that these things can be done by people on their own with the assistance of artificial intelligence without an attorney at all, which would save people billions of dollars a year.
It's a big deal. Big deal. I usually ask people at the end of the interview their biggest takeaway through the nightmare that they went through, but in this situation, we don't have that, Lawrence. So I wonder what your advice would be for people who wanna get in, they wanna advocate for change. What would be your, because you've been somebody that's been there and you've advocated, you've been in a criminal defense attorney. What how how's the best way for people to get involved for change?
I think that there are so many things that need work, right, within the criminal justice system. And so I would say to somebody who wants to advance the cause of making this a better and more ideal system, to find an area, find a silo that you think that you can be of best assistance in and to, and really work that. Get involved. Find other people in other organizations who are already tackling that same issue. Go out to the conventions and to the meetings and so that you can collaborate with like-minded people. And although the wheels turn very slow, don't give up. Stay motivated, stay passionate, stay connected with other people so that they can help you to stay motivated and stay passionate,
Yeah.
and know that together we are moving the needle.
That's great advice. Don't give up on it because it does move slow, but it takes a lot of voices to make the change, and I love that. I want to give a shout out to Homestead Financial. Home Mortgage lets me use this podcast room and all the fancy lights and stuff. If you got home mortgage needs out there, Greg Afdiev is your guy. Hey, if you're looking for a book, I got one right back here. It's called Nightmare Success, Loyal to Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting and Finally Breaking Free. Check it out. Go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you got time, leave me a review on Apple. Those really help out. If you want to know what I'm doing, go to brentcassidy.com. I spell it wrong. I spell it with a TY, not a DY. And as I used to say to my people as I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Lawrence Blackmon, man, thanks so much. And go to legalese.com to get started with getting yourself a fresh start.
Brent, it was a process for us to get that domain. That's like a really premium domain.
I
It
like
was
it.
owned by the same person, from back since the dot-com boom, and, we wanted it, man. We wanted it, and we negotiated it. It took about a year to get that worked out, but we are now the proud owners of legalese.com, so please visit us there. If you are looking for assistance, if you're looking for a fresh start, then we are there to help you. Have a chat with Wilma. She'll let you know if you're eligible, and from there, she'll guide you right on through the process the same way that a lawyer would, but at a fraction of that cost.
Love it. Love it. Check it out. Legalese.com. Lawrence Blackmon, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been wonderful, and I look forward to doing it again.
Nightmare success in and out.